All right, so YouTube and Rumble and all that should be on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Jen. I don't know what I'll do. We'll worry about TikTok later, I guess.
We'll worry about that later. We'll do a trial run this week or something.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
No
you very
problem.
much. Yeah, bye.
Sure.
Everybody on here? The host? All right. Okay, good. So you guys are coming on now. Instagram. So we got Instagram and we got TikTok. I don't know what to say. Just go to like YouTube or go to TikTok sound only and chat's visible. Yeah, right. I know. I know. So I'm just saying, if you're on TikTok, go to either Instagram or the other ones because TikTok won't let me look now because TikTok is really they don't want me. They want people that are into really weird stuff. But me, they always censor me because I'm not. I guess I'm not weird enough. Well, I won't work on it. Okay, so here we are. Anyway, wow, jeez. So sorry. What a way to start, huh? Anyway, welcome to Sunday Night Live and Monday Morning Live here in the best part of the world. I'm sorry I say that, but I mean, for those of you who are not here, but what can I say? I feel so much like real. Everything's real now. Anyway, Koto, really sorry about all that. I really sorry about that. Someday I may actually. You can see me on Facebook finally. Yay! Well, incredible. All right, you guys. So TikTok's just gonna have to listen, unless you want to go to Instagram or Rumble or YouTube. Okay, so let's remind everybody. Okay, so I'm on Twitter at Dr. Thomas Lodi MD, and I'm at Dr. Thomas Lodi on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So just find me on one of those other ones. So if you can't see on TikTok, it's because TikTok is playing games with me, as usual. Uh, yeah. All right, so people are coming on now. All right, you guys. So try to go on the other ones. It'll be good. Okay, let's go on the other ones. Let's see. Are you here? All right, cool. All right, well, let's get going then. Whoa. Anyway, um, I guess you all are aware with that World War III has started. I really, when is there ever a good time? It's certainly not a good time now. Um, but I was just, I wasn't sure if it was real, because you're never sure what's real. But then I ran into these people at the airport from Israel, and their plane was diverted. They're Israeli. The plane was diverted over here, and they were told not to go to Israel right now because it was being attacked. And apparently, there's no response yet. And anyway, it could be the beginning of a thing. And from what I understand, there's all kinds of warships going to that area. And I mean, just in case. Can you imagine why these guys can't just live their lives, let us live our lives? Just it's a beyond tragedy. I guess we have a collective karma that we're just not ready to pay, but I'm not. Anyway, not easy to be all excited and all that when you have things kind of like World War III happening. It's anyway. Let's see where we're at. Warships from America and Australia going there, and Navy SEAL teams are being deployed, and They've been on high alert in Australia for many days, long before this happened. So you know it's all part of a plan. Um, I mean, the whole thing from the beginning was a plan, right? The attack, the allowed attack in by Hamas in Israel and all that. I mean, I'm sure you all know this stuff because you're on this kind of you know we're talking about things that are uh, real and not contrived. So I'm sure you understand. It's pretty easy to see the contrived. Anyway, so once once this gets started, we might not have a lot of things. Won't be able to fly. Probably won't be have. Hopefully we'll be able to keep internet for a while. um, yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand why there's, like, I've traveled most of the world, and I meet people from, I don't know how many countries. I mean, all but a few. And the average person is just really a super nice person who just wants to live their life and just wants to, and they want what they need and not more. Not most people are not into having more than they need. You know, it's like having more than you can eat. What are you going to do? You can't eat it. You can't eat more. You're going to save it, and then eventually it won't be savable because of in other words, we just need what we need. But most people are that way. Most people are that way. The problems on this planet are always with the guys that are ruling it. The what do you call it? The the elite. The ruling class. It's always them. When they write our history books, when we read history, what do we read? We don't read what was happening in Belgium in the year 1622 or the year 300 before current era. No, we just learn about wars, who conquered who, and who, that's what we learn. That's history. Well, that's the history for the elite who are playing their game, their chess game. But for us people that live here on this planet, life is not that. Unfortunately, and it's actually pretty well thought out. I mean, think about it. What happens is that we're restricted as you grow up in whatever society. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, right? I would say 99% of the cultures and religions all have pretty much the same taboos. And Osho, I'm sure some of you know about Osho. Osho had a pretty amazing idea that because all societies, like I was pointing out, it's okay that you want to eat. It's okay that you want to drink. It's okay that you want to sleep. It's okay that you have to use you have to empty your bowels and empty your bladder. That's okay. But sex, no. So for some reason, that has always been restricted, no matter whatever culture. Well, as it turns out, Osho had a pretty good idea. I mean, a pretty good concept there. He said because of that restriction. Now he said something very interesting. If at the age of 12 or 13 or whatever age it is that you suddenly are hormonally awakened, um, if our societies celebrated the coming of age, like because nature's kind of telling you that. And who made nature? Ah, that's right. Yeah. God. So anyway, nature's kind of saying it's time. Wake up. Hello, I'm here. And we're saying no, no, no. You got to go to college first. You got to do. We have all these reasons why we shouldn't do it, and so it's restricted. And you got to have a contract with another person, and get married and all that sort of thing first. And that's fine. Okay, well, let's do that anyway. So his conclusion was, if it was celebrated and it was allowed to be, that you would probably be with you'd probably meet someone. Remember, we all kind of remember our first love. Well, imagine if you met your first love and you were able to take it um, to its conclusion. It might be something we can't comprehend how beautiful it would be, but and then he said by the age of 40 we would all pretty much be done with that, and we would spend the rest of our lives pursuing the spiritual aspects of our lives, and that's kind of how it would be. But instead, we've got people in their 50s, 60s, 70s who are still not satisfied in that area. But more than that, I mean, but specific to what we're talking about with World War III, is he said the only way you can get uh, an 18-year-old healthy male to go out and kill people that they never met is because they're frustrated. He said if they were home and they were happy and everything was cool, it'd be really hard to get these guys out of the nest and out killing people. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I mean, I think it's very worth considering. And it's something we'll never be able to know because at least the way things are, maybe after the great change that's coming on, who knows? Maybe humanity will be more in line with nature. Because if we were in line with nature, we wouldn't have taboos against natural processes. So, yeah. Anyway, so here we are. We've got the elite writing history books and telling us that history is about conquering and which king and which president and which prime minister and all that sort of thing, as if um, that's history. That's not history. That's their chess game. We're the pawns. Yeah. It's if I didn't know that divinity was leading all this, I would say that it seems so tragic. Anyway, kind of very hard to assimilate. Very, very hard to assimilate. So, anyway, let's answer some questions, okay? Ah, interesting. Some people, you guys on TikTok, I apologize. You're going to have to go to Instagram or YouTube or LinkedIn or Rumble or any of those others, or Facebook, Instagram, and then you can see visual. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about some questions today, okay? That's why we're here, actually. Um, I forgot to say, Zawadi Cup. Sawadi be my. This is a period of Thailand, a couple of their New Year. It's called Songkran, and so we say Sawadi Songkran, one Songkran, and it's their New Year's, which kind of makes sense because it's springtime and the sun's really uh, things are starting to bloom. It's a new biological year. It's a new natural year, you know. But doesn't matter. It's just and I talked about this on the New Year's on our New Year's our January 1st New Year's. We talked about that. What is a year and all that sort of thing. So it doesn't matter. We just all need to be celebrating that we're alive and that life is. Uh, where there's life, there's hope, and an understanding that in the end, the universe consists of balance. It has to balance. So whether we've got, just like we have night and we have day, if right now we're going into the nighttime, we're going to remember there'll be a daytime following. That's just the way it is. We have to understand that. Okay, it's hard to comprehend that the universe is not moral. It's just happens according to necessity. Like we've mentioned many times before, is it good or bad that a wolf is eating a rabbit? Well, it's neither good nor bad. It's just necessary, clearly. How do we know it's necessary? Because it's happening. And how do we know what's not happening is not necessary? Because it's not happening. I mean, I know that sounds circular, but it's really true. Okay, so anyway, first question is by Johnny. what are the contributions of intermittent fasting and water fasting to the prevention of CFCs or any other condition? All right, so uh, just for those of you who may be um, your first time here, just want to define some words because uh, if we're speaking the same language, that's a good start. Second start is we have the same. Second point is that we have the same definition of words. Like for example, I got an example. The example I like to use often is the word meat, MEAT. In English, actually, meat means sort of like essence. What is the meat of the subject? What is the I always eat the meat of. I love the meat of the coconut. All right. So anyway, it's the essence of something. And so I usually when I think about a corpse and the muscles of a corpse, I don't think of that as the essence of the animal. So I wouldn't say it's meat. I would call it corpse. All right. So that's my definition of meat. Meat, which I think is probably the real, because people say, "Give me the meat." I want the meat. I want the. In other words, I want the essence. I want to understand. Okay, and so that's how I look at that. So anyway, talking about this condition that most of you came here because we're talking about the word cancer, and the word cancer has come to mean something that it isn't, because as we all know, the only place you've seen the word cancer, other than with false reference to the body, is as a zodiac sign, right? Um, and that's it. There's really no other use of that word. And so if you're born in the month to the time of that zodiac sign Cancer, then that's it. But if you're not, then you know, keep that in mind. Anyway, my point is this: we're not going to use that word because that word has also been tied to a great such a pervasive um, um, severe uh, fear because of it becomes synonymous with the word death, and it's not synonymous. That condition is not synonymous with death. I know this firsthand 1,000 times. Okay, that I know that. I'm not just saying that. I know that. So, but what is going on, as we've talked about before, and it's good that we clarified this at the very beginning. So, for those of you who've heard this before, um, just let's listen one more time, and for those of you who haven't heard, just listen up, please. So, anyway, the law of the universe is to maintain balance, homeostasis. I mean, balance is always being obtained in the universe, always, um, and it cannot be out of balance. And usually balance is a is a slow process, but at times the balance has to become is the balancing of a certain situation happens rapidly, such as lightning. So when lightning happens, what happens is you see there's an imbalance and it must quickly. So that's what the universe will do. It'll Everything's always maintaining balance. Because without balance, there's disharmony and things fall apart. So that's the rule of the universe. And in biological organisms, it's called homeostasis. And in terms of homeostasis, we have several kinds of homeostasis. We have biomechanical homeostasis. So and homeostasis means to maintain functional integrity, regardless of what you're faced with. All right. So somebody pushes you this way, and your left leg goes out to keep you upright. That's a biomechanical homeostatic response, corrective response, so that you don't fall. Okay. Uh, no, I mean just looking here real quick. Someone may have a squamous or basal cell or melanoma. I think you should allow a dermatologist to biopsy. No, I wouldn't biopsy it. It wouldn't biopsy it. I wouldn't biopsy it. I wouldn't biopsy it. I would look at it and pretty much be able to tell if it's melanoma or basal or squamous cell just by looking at it. And whatever it is, I would do the same things. We would do the same things. Whatever name they would put on it. That's only a description of the microscopic architecture. So anyway, I'm sorry, I just answered a question there, but Now, physiological homeostasis would be, um, let's say you're eating greasy food and your arteries are getting plugged up pretty quickly, and your body has the wisdom. It knows that it needs to maintain blood flow to all the organs, otherwise um, they won't be getting the nutrients and oxygen that they need. So blood flow must be maintained. So how do you maintain blood flow when arteries are narrowed? You have to increase the pressure. So again, this high blood pressure situation is a necessary response to a situation. Okay, that's not a good long-term response, but it's the only one that was available at all physiologically. It's the only thing that was available. That's a physiological homeostatic response. And then we have biochemical. So you're eating, and this is one we use often, and you're eating lots of foods that wind up producing high glucose in your blood, such as pasta, bread, potato, rice, corn, cooked corn, things like that. We're eating lots of that, pizzas, but whatever. We have high glucose, so our body, to maintain uh, functional integrity, not to die, because the body knows that too much glucose will be deadly, um, becomes insulin resistant. And that insulin resistance is protect the cells from getting too much glucose. Okay, so again, this is your that's biomechanical, physiological, and then a biochemical homeostatic corrective responses, and they're going on every second, every millisecond, every nanosecond. But anyway, so when a certain number of organelles called mitochondria in the cell that take oxygen and glucose to make energy, when a certain number of percentage of them get knocked out, the cell must survive, so it starts to ferment. And fermentation um, is a fundamental way of making energy. I mean, even microorganisms can use that. Okay, so it's very primitive but very effective. It takes one glucose and makes two energy packages. Whereas if you go with using the oxygen through the mitochondria, you're going to make 38 from every glucose. So 19 times less efficient. Therefore, the cell needs to upregulate and make some changes on its operating system. Okay, because it's just got shoved over from Mac to Windows or whatever you call it, and now it's got to change operating. It's got to change all of its operating system. So it will silence these three genes. It will activate these three genes. It will enhance these, and all the things it will do to maintain, to be able to survive uh, on a chronic basis, um, the requirement of fermentation. All right. So one of the things it does, it upregulates the number of insulin receptors. Why? Because insulin is how you get glucose, and it needs 19 times more glucose because it's 19 times less efficient, right? Only makes 2 ATP instead of 38 for every molecule of glucose, so 19 times less efficient. Needs 19 times more fuel to maintain the cell's energy needs. Okay, how do you do that? You increase the number of insulin receptors so you can get more glucose in. You make sure those insulin receptors have a higher affinity for the insulin, which they do. You upregulate an enzyme called beta glucosidase, which grabs glucose out of things. You downregulate P53. You downregulate a lot of things so that you can push the wave, all the metabolic um, activity over to fermentation. Okay, so now when all these, it's called the epigenome has now changed. It's an epigenetic modification. An epigenetic modification happens with, but um, all the time. It's just the way the body uh, functions. I'll give you an example that you should all understand, and I've said it before. I feel like I'm very repetitive, but it's important to say again and again and again. Remember, you start out as one cell. Okay, sure, Stacy. Well, it's lime, and babesia and all that. Okay. What was I saying? I forgot where I was. Um, anyway, anyway. So the cell has made all these changes. It's got a new genetic expression. It's not changed the genes, but like when you're one, yeah, you're one cell. When sperm and egg first meet, it's one cell. In that cell is the potential for everything in the body. Then it divides into two. They divide into 4, 8, 16, 32, keeps going, 64, right? Okay, so as it keeps dividing, now it's soon, some cells silence all the genes except for liver stuff. Some cells silence all the genes except for kidney, heart, whatever. And that's what we call differentiation. And so even though each cell has the entire genome, it's only expressing a certain part of it. So that's that's what we call differentiation. So again, but that's just a fundamental mechanism of physiology of growth, embryonic growth and development and all that. So just so you understand that this is just standard for the way in which biology continues to exist. Okay, so now, now that the fermenting cell has been able to change its operating system, now it can function and survive for a while. It becomes a chronically fermenting cell. It's a successful fermenting cell, successfully chronically fermenting cell, SCFCs. But anyway, we call it CFCs. We developed that because somebody, when we were talking about this initially, about a year ago or 8-9 months ago, somebody, we were trying to figure out what to call it, and somebody came up with that. It's beautiful, CFCs. So we're going to cell it chronically fermenting cell. Why? Because it's accurate. It's what we're really talking about. And number two, it doesn't carry the emotional punch that the other one does, right? The other zodiac sign does. Okay, that's it. So again, the question here was, what are the contributions of intermittent fasting and water fasting to the prevention of CFCs or any other? Johnny's using the word diseases, but we all know there's no diseases. We've talked about the myth of disease. We know, we just mentioned it now. What we're calling diseases are the body physiologically adapting, biologically adapting, biochemically adapting. It's an adaptive physiology. Adaptive physiology. There's no third-party disease that gets in there. Diabetes does not get into you. High blood pressure does not get into you. These are not things that get into you that you have to get rid of. That's not it. Although we talk about it as if it were that way. Okay, so there's a myth of disease. There's no disease. There's the body adapting to situations that are not meeting its biological requirements. That's it. Okay, now the word intermittent fasting, again, I have to always make sure we're speaking the same language. So intermittent fasting is what? Well, first of all, you have to say what's a fast. Then you can talk about intermittent fasting. A fast is what? Not eating, what, for 1 minute? Is that a fast? Because they'll say intermittent fasting, if you don't, when you're fasting for 8 hours. Well, not eating for 8 hours, I wouldn't call it fasting. You just didn't eat for 8 hours. Maybe you were so full you couldn't eat. I mean, so let's give it a definition that is functional and makes sense, and that's what 24 hours. So 24 hours without 24 hours without any nutrient intake. You're drinking water, but 24 hours without nutrient intake would be considered a fast. Because if you're eating just once a day or twice a day, I could just call that healthy eating. And if you're eating nutrient-dense food, which got a lot, your nutritional requirements, energy requirements are being met. So there's no physiological need to eat more frequently. Remember, there's the physiology of hunger, and then there's the non-physiology of appetite. Okay, so hunger, as we know, is when the body is experiencing either a nutrient or energy deficit. It signals a whole set of responses where the organism goes and obtains either a nutrient and or energy from the environment, called eating or ingesting or whatever. And once that deficit has been fulfilled, the organism stops eating. So unlearned, non-specific, because the organism will eat anything that's within its instinct, and easily satisfied. That's the physiology of hunger. Whereas appetite comes from the mind, and it's learned, it's specific, i.e., cravings, and it's never satisfied. Never satisfied. Okay, that's appetite. So now, so we're going to call it. So I would not call intermittent fasting anything that what I would by the definition we're using, where fasting means a 24-hour period without nutrients. Okay, it's one day. It makes sense because you didn't eat that day. If you ate that day, then you didn't fast, and you satisfy. If you ate a really nutrient-dense food, a meal, and you ate for 2 hours, you satisfy your nutrient requirements, so you didn't fast that day. Okay, so intermittent fasting would be, for example, you ate every third day, or you did not eat every third or fourth day, or you skipped every Sunday, or um, you know, you were amazing enough that you ate every other day. Imagine that. Uh, anyway, that would be intermittent fasting. Okay. Now, what is referred to in the what people have, what's become popularized is intermittent fasting has been become synonymous with it. They're also calling restrictive eating, and I don't like terms that. I just don't like developing terms for things because when you develop a term or an acronym or anything like that, or it's kind of like an idiom, you lose you're not thinking anymore. You're using something that you learned already, and you're not thinking anymore. You're not actively thinking. But anyway, so think of the body as having X amount of energy, whatever that is. Okay. Now, as long as it's eating, that eating requires chewing, swallowing, and all the processes of digestion. And that digestion goes from the mouth all the way down to the colon, right? And there's multiple different steps along the way. That's um, and all of that requires energy. Okay, so if you're doing that, there's a certain amount of the if you're eating, there's a certain amount of energy of your energy that's being used. Okay, now if you're eating like 3 times a day, you will have swallowed it, and then by the time it's in your duodenum or in your part of your small intestines, you're eating again, and then it gets down, and then so that you've always got all three, the oral swallowing, chewing like that. Then you've got the middle absorption, and then you've got the colon where it's absorbing the water and getting ready to defecate. You got all those three going on at once all day, all day. So now, um, so all that energy is being used, and there's not a lot of energy left over for cleaning and renewing and regenerating. Okay, because it's too busy assimilating. And so, for that reason, God designed nature such that you won't eat all the time. In fact, most animals, organisms, plants, whatever, don't find nutrients daily. They might for 2 or 3 days, and then maybe not for 5 or 6 days. Right? It's kind of built into nature, not for any other reason that it's necessary. Remember, the only thing that ever happens in the universe um, is happens as a result of the law of necessity. Why is it necessary to not eat all the time? Because when you're not eating, you're cleaning and rebuilding and regenerating, restoring. That's just the way it is. So, what happens? So, what they're calling intermittent fasting is what they're also calling restrictive eating, which means eating less than 3 times a meal. I mean, 3 times a day would be considered normal. I consider it very excessive. Even twice a day, every day. You got to have days where you're not eating, and you've got to always stop anywhere from 3 to 6 hours before you go to sleep, depending on your age. The younger you are, okay, the less time it takes for you to digest, because you want to go to sleep when you've finished absorbing. You're no longer absorbing anything. All right. Why? Because then if you're not absorbing, then your body's going to recycle, and it's going to engage in what's called autophagy, where it cleans itself up. restores. But anyway, so intermittent um, fasting, which would be oh anyway, let's take the popular uh, definition of the word intermittent fasting. What they're saying is eating only a part of the day. So most of the studies are done with Ramadan, which is um, I don't think a good example because in Ramadan, in reality, when you talk to people that celebrate that, in reality, they they don't eat or drink anything, even water, during the day, and then when sun goes down, they can start eating and drinking. And unfortunately, what a lot of people do is they try to make up for that 12 hours by overeating. So, however, in spite of that fact, because they had the let's say 12 or so hours off of not eating, they actually see benefits. They see a lot of benefits in terms of blood pressure, cardiovascular problems, chronically fermenting cells. They actually see benefit just from not eating 12 hours, even though they eat a lot or overeat afterwards. That's crazy. Unfortunately, that's all they've been able to look at, and but okay. So now, when we talk about eating, let's look at not eating, fasting. Okay. So the question was, what are the benefits? So if you stop eating, let's say up to 3 hours, your body is still absorbing all that. So okay, that's not just you're not eating, you're allowing that to happen. Okay. After about 4 hours, depending how old you are, if you're older, it might be 6 hours to 24 hours. Okay. You switch into a sort of a catabolic or breakdown state where your body starts to take the stored nutrients. Okay, because it has to maintain a certain blood glucose and blood lipids and all the. So it'll start breaking down glycogen. Glycogen is how animals store glucose. It's called starch. Plants store it. And it's called starch, so animal starch is called glycogen. Most of it's stored in our livers and some in our muscles. And all it is glucose molecules strung together. So they get broken down because now you start producing something called glucagon instead of insulin. And the glucagon is going to start to cause the breakdown of glycogen into glucose. Okay, so that's what happens between like 4 and 24 hours. After you get from like 24 hours on, um, there's a certain enzyme that's a system that's switched on called the PPAR enzyme, and that actually stimulates begins the process of ketogenesis. Right? And what is that? Ketogenesis is when the fatty acids are broken down into ketone bodies. And there's three basic ketone bodies, and they're utilized. They can be used as fuel. In fact, they actually store more energy than carbohydrates do. All right, um, so what happens at 24 hours? From 24 hours and on, you start producing a little bit of some ketones. Now it really depends on your history of eating. How frequently you ate, how high your fasting glucose was, fasting insulin was. So a lot of things depend on will affect what happens to you during 24 to 72 hours. But basically, you're switching from a glucose metabolism to a fatty acid metabolism. That's the fundamental thing you're doing. And so, it's interesting. There's two hormones. One's called ghrelin, one's called leptin. And ghrelin kind of tells you that you're hungry, and leptin says, "I'm not hungry. I'm full. I did it. I'm good now." Anyway, so um, the ghrelin, instead of going up and up and up when you stop eating, after about 24 hours, it starts to go down, and it goes down again. So pretty soon, it turns out that you have less ghrelin than you did on day 2 or day 1. Okay, and this is why what happens is people find out on a water fast is after 2-3 days, maybe 4 at the most, they're just simply not hungry anymore. But that is, they don't have the ghrelin and they don't have the appetite. And they find actually that leptins start going up. Why? Because the body was designed to survive and do well and clean house by not eating. So that's what's going to happen. All right. One of the other things happens is you stop making, you decrease the amount of growth hormone, and which growth hormone produced by the pituitary gets the liver, turns into the IGF, insulin-like growth factors 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. So, but these short-term decreases in IGF-1 activity in adults has been associated with of course, less oxidative stress because you're not dealing with foods and breaking them down and causing free radicals, and a decreased risk of metabolic conditions, such as, whatever we call them, insulin resistance and all those, cardiovascular. Okay, and the decreased level of this growth hormone also therefore you have improvements in immunity, decreased inflammation, stimulation of neurogenesis, your mind, your thinking, and overall metabolic health results from a decrease in that. Okay. Now, so after 3 days, you go into ketosis, and you've got the most usable, the most of the 3 ketone bodies, it's beta hydroxybutyrate, which is the main one, and it goes up and up, and one of the beautiful things that it does is it actually, in addition to being used for fuel, it actually stimulates the cells that line all the blood vessels and including the heart to renew themselves and become fresh and flexible again. Because with age, our endothelium, as it's called, those cells that line our vessels, become hardened, and so we have blood pressure goes up, and the ability to control the amount of blood that goes in and out of different organs, right? Because depending on, when you're working out, you need more blood going to there than you do to your muscles than you do to your liver. So we've got these modifications in the blood flow, and that's usually due to autonomic nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic, its effect on the little smooth muscles in the arterioles that feed the organs. So anyway, the renewal of the endothelium is an incredible benefit, because when if you're working in an ICU and you watch people die, usually the final events have to do with basically the microcirculation shuts down, and also things are not being absorbed, and so you have multi-organ failure and things like that. And there's nothing else that really renews the endothelial cells except beta hydroxybutyrate, which comes from fasting. And if you can renew those, you can actually be restored to youth, because youth is the ability to one of the main things with being youthful and energetic and healthy is that your ability to circulate the blood and the nutrients and getting rid of the waste is increased. And it's remember, it's the endothelial cells too that are the mediators of inflammation. That's where all of our inflammatory processes begin. So it's a very important. It's considered actually as an organ system, the whole endothelial. And by the way, the blood is always in direct contact only with endothelial cells. They never get in direct contact. It never gets in direct contact with cells. So when the blood arrives at the capillaries, things diffuse back and forth. and they're carried. Some of them are carried. But the blood itself, especially the red blood cells, stay within the blood vessels. They don't go into the interstitial fluid, which is the fluid in which cells are bathed. Okay, so anyway, so we know that like by day 3 of fasting, that both insulin levels and glucose levels are decreased by about 30%, which is amazing. It's very good. But I'll tell you something. We have fasted people for 41 days, and I'm still seeing blood glucoses of 60. Some people 70 on day 41, meaning that the body is going to make glucose. Okay, and those processes are the liver takes amino acids and turns them into glucose. It's called gluconeogenesis. Okay, um, and also one of the other main fuels of the body is called glutamine, and glutamine is a non-essential amino acid, meaning your body will make it. Um, and both are necessary not only as fuel sources, but also as the carbon backbones and nitrogen backbones to make all the amino acids, fatty acids, nucleic acids, genetic material. All of that stuff needs to have material from which it is made, and that's where it comes from. So these are yeah, so keep that in mind, okay? Uh, After about day 10 of fasting, the IGF-1 levels go as low as those people that actually have deficiency syndrome. However, what else happens to people like that? They have an incredibly, when we look at people with deficiency syndromes of IGF-1, they actually have decreased CFCs, decreased diabetes or insulin resistance, and overall increased mortality, decreased mortality. All right. Now, as I said, from about day 2 or 3 or 4, depending on the person, when you go into full-blown ketosis, all the cells in your body have learned to use ketones, and they will not use glucose. They don't. If there's no glucose, they're fine, except the brain. The brain hangs in there. Remember, the brain's using 25% of the glucose, even though it accounts for like less than 1% of our body weight. It's still using 25% of the glucose. So the liver is engaged in gluconeogenesis, and that gluconeogenesis is, it keeps a fairly high glucose level in the blood. But when you get to day 9, finally, the brain um, decides to start using ketones as well. And then beginning day 10, the gluconeogenesis goes down. And now the body still needs some glucose. It still needs that remember, to make different other kinds of molecules. So what it does is, and it needs glutamine. So it goes on a hunt, sparing the organs and sparing the liver, and it goes on a hunt looking for all tissues that are non-essential to life, such as plaques in the arteries, such as cysts, such as tumors, and takes all those and recycles them and grabs the energy from them. And so basically, it's beginning on day 10 that we see that it starts to eat up things inside, which is why when I have people doing prolonged fasts, we see that almost everyone that I've ever worked with that gets to 41 days eliminates all tumors. Not everyone. Sometimes we have to start eating again. The refeeding is very difficult at that when you get to 41 days. It takes a long time to refeed. You've got to know what you're doing, so you can't just do this. Because if you refeed wrong, unhealthy, it's going to have dire consequences. But after the refeeding, the person eats a while, and then we let them eat for perhaps, I don't know, 2 to 4 weeks, and then have them build up some stores, and then let's go for as long as we can. All right. So now, what the other thing that happens with it's interesting when they talk about people with fasting, what happens to their mentality. Some people, like they've looked at diabetics, and who have insulin resistance, and they seem to have a rougher time doing it just because they're higher glucose. So they're equating glucose with mood, with mind, right? And you get people feel terrible um, when they, some people are feeling terrible when they, uh, day two of a fast, day three of a fast, okay, and they did most of the studies with Ramadan, and they looked at you know different kinds of scales, the visual analog scale, the fatigue severity scale, and all that, and they found that those who um, had started out, and then they found that people that had fasted in the past had an easier time doing it, and all that sort of thing. It all has to do with attitude, and I can't stress this enough. It has to do with attitude and your feeling of being deprived versus your feeling of doing something positive. So what we've learned to do, because by the way, I've been working with fasting for at least 40 years. And of course, back in the day, if I recommended fasting, I could lose my license. Now everybody's become an expert. I don't know how they became experts all of a sudden because they weren't fasting in the past. So I don't know, but they all became experts, and yeah. Anyway, so what we've learned is that if if you let a person go through a fast and there's no input, their mind is going to go back to what they grew up with, and that is, what did we grow up with? You got to eat. Are you crazy? You're not going to eat? And then if you run into any relatives or friends, they're going to say, what are you doing? You got to eat. Come on. You want to keep your strength up. You want to heal. You want to eat. No, all that's just simply not true. It's just hearsay, and it's incorrect hearsay. It turns out that not eating is equally as important as eating. But the not eating should be way greater than the times that we're eating. Because when you're not eating is when you're putting what you ate to use and cleaning house and keeping yourself healthy. Okay, so if your eating period and your not eating period are equal, you're not getting enough cleansing. You need to have more not eating than you do eating. All right, so, but our mind and our friends and everybody else is going to be saying, oh man, you got to eat, 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 eat. So if you're left to your own devices, what will happen is when you're not eating, when you're fasting, you're going to be feeling, if you stick it out, you're going to feel deprived. You're going to feel, and that negative emotions have a direct effect on the body, a direct effect on the immune system. So instead, what we've learned is you've got to read books on fasting. So you read The Science and Fine Art of Fasting by Herbert M. Shelton. You read Fasting Can Save Your Lives by Herbert M. Shelton. You read, it's a really long title, by Herwood Carrington, written in 1915. Look him up. And then there's Arnold Ehret. There's Bragg. These people that actually fasted a long time. Now, what I like about Shelton is that he actually had a fasting farm in San Antonio for like 30 years. And he had people from all over the world come. And so did Carrington in the early part of that century. People came from all over the world with varying kinds of problems and got better. Okay? Because when you stop eating, your body heals. And we know that's true because we know that it's the most natural and only cure handed down by God. And the reason we can say that with confidence is because all creatures, when they're ill, except for humans, when they're ill, stop eating. Drink water and rest. Stop eating. Okay? Humans are the only ones who have to continue to have chicken soup at least, right? Gotta have chicken soup. Keep your strength up. Keep your strength up. The opposite happens. So anyway, so reading from these guys about fasting, you'll realize, God, I'm not being deprived. This is fantastic. Wow. I mean, whoa, this is, oh, wow. Oh, and you start to, and you turn that into, now you'll find out that low glucose doesn't have any negative effect on you, right? It's just that, you're saying, wow, yeah, right? So it's mind. The mind is powerful, but you've got to understand if a person's ability to acknowledge and deal with their weaknesses is a measure of their, probably the most powerful measure of a person's strength. That the degree to which they acknowledge and respect their weaknesses. Okay, so understand that unless you're getting some input, some positive input, your 80% of human thought is negative. What do you mean you're not eating? Oh my God! Oh my God! Poor me! I'm so. Am I doing the right thing? No, yeah, you're not only doing the right thing. You're being blessed. Why do I say that? Because if you ever get the blessing, which gives you the time to fast, truly fast, you'll find those times don't come around very often. I mean, it's hard to get that a long period of time off where you're not required to, work or whatever. It's really hard. It's a blessing to have the opportunity to fast. Now, just to bring this to give it another quick expression, there was there's a story about in India, a guy goes to his guy hasn't eating and goes up to the guru and says, "Oh, Guruji, Guruji, please, can I have some food? I haven't eaten in 3 days." So the guru gives him some food. And another fellow comes along a little bit later and says, "Oh, Guruji, Guruji, please, can I have your blessings? Today is day 5 of my fast." Both not eating, different attitudes. One wants the blessing and is happy and feels good about it. The other one is busy starving. Okay, it's a mind. That's how important it is. But anyway, fasting is it. There's not a better, more powerful, more complete, comprehensive, absolute way to heal. You can't start out that way if you are cachectic, of course. If you're already at the point where your body is consuming itself, then of course that's not going to work. You need to eat first. You need to get nourished first. Now, what has been noticed too, I just want to take the fasting a little bit further, is that the fasting actually stimulates neurogenesis and enhances the neuron's ability of synaptic plasticity. In other words, get learning becomes is better, is improved, cognitive function is improved, um, and it has to do with the fact that there's actually a brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Other kinds of factors are being produced that stimulate neurogenesis or increased nerve production. Okay. Furthermore, the as you know, serotonin is the feel-good hormone. Well, that increases with the period of fasting. So tryptophan becomes serotonin, and that whole process is increased with prolonged fasting. Okay. And that elevates the mood and makes you feel good about it. So you'll find that most people that get past that initial problem in their mind regarding not eating, when they realize that they're not eating, it's not that they're not eating, it's that they're fasting. It's different. This one is a deprivation. This one is a doing. I'm fasting. I'm not eating. Difference. Um, anyway, so it serotonin's increased. The neuropeptide Y genes are increased, and in the neuropeptide Y, it acts through the spinal column, the spinal receptors, um, and signals signs of inflammation and neuropathic pain. Anyway, so the neuropeptide Y actually can diminish pain. So people find that they have less pain, they have improved mood, they're thinking better, they're clearer, all that. And there's actually, there's physiological and biochemical reasons for this. All right, they found that like with what they're calling intermittent fasting, they have a decreased incidence of or onset of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and some of the other what we think are neurological conditions. So Um, and one of the things with CFCs, the low IGF-1 um, is very beneficial for not producing CFCs. But also the inhibition of the tyrosine kinase uh, enzyme uh, is what happens with fasting, which turns off basically the whole CFC process. It's really powerful, really powerful. But you got to get beyond 3. You got to remember, real work begins on day 10. So that's prolonged fast. Even if you go to day 12, at least you got 2 good days of that. Plus, I can't underestimate I don't want to underplay or underemphasize the benefits of getting those first uh, 10 days as well, the first 3 days, 4 days, whatever. If you can do one day, oh, it's fine. That's beautiful. But I'm just saying, when you get up to 10, you start is when the work of just getting rid of unnecessary tissues in the body. All right, so fasting is going to be one of the topics we're going to have on when we start our groups. And I heard now that it's May 1st that will be started. Okay. Okay, here's Colleen, and she's saying, besides helping one sleep, what role does melatonin play in CFCs? Your protocol to me was 80 to 120 daily. Now that the tumor has been removed, should I still take melatonin, and how much? All right, well, yeah, Colleen, good question. Yes, as we know, blind people have less of CFCs than people who can see, and that's because they're always in the dark and they're always producing melatonin. Remember a moment ago we were talking about tryptophan becomes serotonin, right? Tryptophan's an amino acid. Uh, well, as it turns out, when the lights go down, their luminosity goes down below a certain frequency, it switches on another enzyme that takes the serotonin and takes it all the way to melatonin. So melatonin has 3 fundamental effects. One is it begins the sleep cycle, begins the sleep process, number 1. Number 2, it is one of the most potent scavengers of the hydroxyl radical, which is a biochemical intermediate that accumulates throughout the day and is extremely damaging, can result in all things, including CFCs. Well, that's cleaned up during the night while you're sleeping by melatonin. Every molecule of melatonin can pick up 4 of those. And then finally, both the T cells and natural killer cells are all activated. So it's a very powerful immune enhancing. So yes, I take 120 a night. So yeah, continue to do it. I'm still apologize. I'm still getting over the flight, all those flights, crazy. Now this is Rosa. I know medicinal mushrooms are helpful in many ways, but my homeopathic vet says when he's really eating clean, he avoids them because any mushroom is a fungus. Your thoughts? Some suggest turmeric for its 2,000 plus beneficial compounds. Others say curcumin is more concentrated, therefore better. All right, well, um, funguses are actually in their own category. They're not the same as other organisms, and their fundamental role in the ecosystems and biology and all that is they're not part of the food chain. They are taking dead material and turning it into recycling it so that it can become alive again. And there are many, many kinds, and they have many, many, just like there are many, many different animals, many, many different plants, there are many, many different funguses. And some have, they have multiple effects. Some are, as you know, psychedelic and help people go through very important inward changes that they would not normally be able to undergo, right? Such as psilocybin. It's very helpful. There's also a mold that grows on wheat, ergot, uh, which is resulted in what lysergic acid diethylmide, which is LSD. So these funguses can change your your neurochemistry such that you can. It's actually very, very incredibly therapeutic and beneficial. So there's others that stimulate the maitake, shiitake, turkey tail, goes on agaricus. There's many that actually enhance natural killer cell function. There's others that are just people just eat them for their flavor, and then there's others that are poisonous, and you could be dead within 48 hours. So yeah, I don't at all. So if you're, I don't understand what he was saying. But he's really eating clean. He avoids them because any mushroom is a fungus. But that's funguses are neither good nor bad. They're necessary, and some have other. Some have these. Some have um, a nutritional value. Some have uh, psychological values. Some have uh, immune enhancing value. There's a variety of different ones. So I don't quite agree with that. No. And in terms of turmeric or curcumin, yeah, I agree. Both are. I would do both. Take both. Um, Keeping in mind that when we ingest it, we can only absorb up to about 3% of what we ingest. If we add pepper, of course, we can maybe get that up to maybe 5%. Okay, now here's one. Guy Galina. I am a 42-year-old woman with breast implants of 16 years. Mammogram from last year discovered suspicious microcalcification in my left breast. They called it BIRADS 3. No biopsy. I missed my 6-month mammogram because I had a terrible breast pain right after my last mammogram. Yes. So I've decided to do breast MRI with contrast, where were other non-mass enhancements found in both my breasts. They called it BIRAD 4, biopsy required. I am not sure what to do. They insist on doing another mammogram and ultrasound for correlation prior to biopsies. What are your thoughts? P.S. I have tried autoimmune reaction. I have a very bad autoimmune reaction right after my diagnostic mammogram. It was debilitating, took 6 months to resolve. That's why I chose MRI. Could that be cracked implants? Yeah, listen, if you don't have implants, you don't want to do mammograms. The sorry if there are any radiologists out there, uh, interventional radiologists like to do mammograms or diagnostic radiologists, but I consider it uh, sadistic. Oh my God, did he say that? Yeah, he did. He said that. Sadistic. Sadistic? Because it doesn't give you any information that you can't get elsewise. You got to do an ultrasound. Do an ultrasound. Do an old-fashioned physical exam. And guess what? If you got a hard mass, very hard mass, that seems to be increasing in size in the breast, there is nothing else it could be but some CFCs. So you don't need, as Bob Dylan said, you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. You certainly don't take tender breast tissue, right? You know, men are always worried about getting any trauma to their testicles, right? They're going to hide them, right? And it's well known. Well, guess what? Women have very sensitive breasts, and it can be it can make them faint with pain if they get damaged in the wrong way. In fact, women who have really serious fibrocystic breast conditions, um, right around the time of their cycle, uh, just hugging their someone could be impossible due to pain. So these are very tender tissue there. So you take this tissue and you squash it so that it's painful. And now that it's being squashed, what's going to happen in its pain? What does pain tell you? It tells you that there's inflammation going on. So you've got inflammation, which is increased blood flow, etc. And now you irradiate it with ionizing radiation. What? What? This is what? This is what? This is what? It's madness. It's insanity. Uh, it's sadism. All right. You notice that. Did you ever notice that when they want to evaluate a man for testicular problems, they don't squash his testicles and then irradiate them, right? Nah. All right. So anyway, your breast, yeah, you probably did that. You probably cracked your implants. The fact that they would do it with implants is even more. It's just. There's no words for these guys. There's no words for these guys. They, you know. Now, okay, so now it's suspicious. If it's suspicious, well, I mean, it's suspicious. This is radiology talk. They also say things like clinical correlation advised, which is their way of covering their ocoles. CYO, they call it CYA. I call it CYO. I like ocole better. Um, anyway, you don't. Okay, so there's never any need to do this painful thing again. All right, ultrasounds are just good. Now they said biopsy required. Is that what was the word? Mandatory? What was that? It was biopsy required. No required. No. Why do they want a biopsy? They want a biopsy so that they can say, give it to the pathologist, and they will look under the microscope and they will say, all right, looks like a one of those abnormal cells, those chronically fermenting cells, is in the duct. Didn't go anywhere. We're going to call it ductal carcinoma in situ. Oh, it looks like there's one of those cells and broke through the wall. Ah, we're going to call that invasive ductal carcinoma. Or it's in the lobule. It's in the little sac that makes the milk. And it broke through, so it's invasive follicular carcinoma. Anyway, there's just names. They're just names and descriptions of the microscopic anatomy. That's all it is. It doesn't help you in any way because it doesn't tell you how did I get this, how do I get rid of this. They say, well, that's why I'm going to know which chemos to use. It doesn't matter. You guess if you got to do is keep the chemo in the. If you're going to use chemo, you got to keep it in the cell and not let it get out because the ability of a cell to push it out is why it's called resistant. Because poison is poison is poison is poison. Keep it in there, it'll poison it. Doesn't matter what it was. In fact, remember IPT when it was first used was used with arsenic and mercury. Right? These are poisons, um, and they're still poisonous today. Yeah, you get them into a cell, the cell can't get rid of them, it will die. Yeah. Okay. So it's not. You don't have to have all these clinical trials, spending all this trillions of dollars, to find out. Oh, you have this. You have ovarian, you have breast, or this is indicated for that. Well, guess what? Give it 5, 6, 7, 8 years after it's been approved by the Federal Death Authority that you find out that, yeah, it was ovary, but now we use it for breast and for colon, and because they all work for everything. They're all the same. They're poisonous, 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 poison. All right? So You don't need a biopsy. You don't want a biopsy. The other thing is that when you get a biopsy, remember, there's a certain angiostatic uh, chemicals that are produced by the main tumor that is telling all the little microscopic islets, preventing them from growing blood vessels so that they can spread. Well, that biopsy or that surgery removes that inhibition, and now they can start growing, and they do. So you don't need it. What you do is you say, okay, well, I'm going to assume that that's what's going on. I've got some chronically fermenting cells, and I'm going to do what I need to do. Clean, find out about my dental health, get biological dentist, take care of my cleansing, colonics, lymphatics, do all that, do a juice cleanse for maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Then I'm going to start eating only real food. I'm going to be going to bed early. I'm going to be moving around all day long, and I'm going to learn how to turn off my mind. I'm going to learn how to listen to my breathing and turn off my mind. And it's called meditation. It's also called psychoneuroimmunology. I'm going to do all of that. And I'm going to get some intravenous vitamin C and some other IV metabolic therapies. Yeah, I'm going to do that because whether I have currently chronically fermenting cells that have formed a tumor or they're still they haven't formed it yet, like everyone else that I've ever met, you've got chronically fermenting cells that have not quite made it to the tumor stage. Yeah. Either way, this is going to be good. Either way. See, it's never wrong to do the right thing. It's never wrong to do the healthy thing. So this is next lady. This is Kelsey. What to do when your thyroid is in trouble after having breast CFCs? Well, first of all, I would make sure you've been to a biological dentist, a real biological dentist, because thyroid and breast are on the same meridian. Also, thyroid and breast are also very similar in other ways. I mean, they both are able to extract iodine from the blood. Uh, so, I mean, but you, it's not that you had thyroid problems after you had them before as well, like we all do, because we're not getting enough iodine because we're not eating enough seed vegetables. So we're going to wind up with that. Anyway, hypothyroid, not enough. Either the iodine deficiency either results in hypo, low functioning thyroid, or hyper. Either way, and it's gonna stimulate the immune system to try and uh, correct the situation, and the immune system winds up getting very high antibodies, and then they come along and say that, oh well, the antibodies are what caused it. So you have this condition called an autoimmune condition that caused the antibodies to go high, or is defined by high antibodies, which therefore caused no. It's like backwards. So what do you do when your thyroid's in trouble after having breast CFCs? Well, same thing. Like I said, you've got to go to the dentist. You got to have a cone beam and make sure there's no root canals or cavitations on those meridians or any other meridians. You got to do cleansing. You got to make sure you're going to get enough iodine. You can get that from Lugol's or you can get that from iodoral. And then like taking 25 milligrams a day. But at the same time, you're going to have to be taking a natural thyroid because the 25 milligrams a day of iodine could actually decrease even more thyroid output. So you want to take enough of, and the one we use is Thyrovance because you can get it without a doctor online. ThyroVanz, and you can take it. And remember, we said the best way to evaluate thyroid is with your basal body temperatures, which is taking your axillary armpit temperature in the morning when you first wake up before you get out of bed. For 5 days in a row, take the average. If the average is less than 36.8 Celsius or 97.8 Fahrenheit, then you're going to need some thyroid medicine. And well, of course, we need to take the iodine as well. This is Sure. 3 questions. One, if you don't want to get a biopsy on a mass in the breast, what other testing are available to know what kind of CFCs? Secondly, what's your opinion on red light therapy? Infrared high 900s. PubMed research only supports more blood vessel growth, and would that be a bad thing? Lastly, glutamine. I have read, is it good to take, and then most recently not to take because it has acts like glucose. All right, so yeah, Sherry, you got lots of good questions there. Uh, if you don't want to get a biopsy, that's good. Then it means you're in touch with your intuitions. So don't get it. Uh, Now, when you said what other kind of tests would you do to find out what kind of CFCs you have? There's no kinds. There's only one kind. There's a location on where it started. It might have started in a duct, in a lobule. It might be started in it might be invaded. It might have gone through the wall of the duct or through the wall of the lobule, and that's all it is. It's just location, but it's still there's only one kind of CFC. It's a cell that is fermenting. Now the differences between them are location and where it started, and also the kind of cell that started it. So each cell has different kind. Like a liver cell does different kinds of things than kidney cells do, and they have different drainage systems and all that. So so determining how this might play out has to do with location and the organ of origin, but not necessarily the biology of CFCs. Um, testing it. So you don't need to know. Okay. Secondly, what's your opinion on red light therapy? Red light therapy is amazing. It's very good. And no, no, I mean, it's not just blood vessel growth. It's actually very good. And you can use red light therapy with uh, different. There's different kinds of substances you can eat, ingest, that will accumulate in areas of where there are CFCs, and the red light can actually resonate with them and cause them to be destructive. It's red light therapy is very good. I'm not sure with that PubMed article. I'd like to read that, which is implying that it can be dangerous. And and glutamine, yeah, glutamine, as I said, is also a fuel like glucose, but not just for CFCs, for all cells. But glutamine is also the main fuel for your lymphocytes, which you're going to need to kill the CFCs, to eliminate the CFCs, and it's also the main fuel source for your small intestine cells, which you need for digestion. Without that, you'll have you will not satisfy your nutrient requirements and be malnourished. So you can't not have glutamine, you can't not have glucose. Don't worry about it. Just don't eat extra. Don't eat glucose in a simplified form. I mean, you're going to find it in spinach. You're going to find it in broccoli. You're going to find it. Glucose is everywhere, but but you don't want the simplified. I mean, you don't want the processed sugars because uh, they're highly concentrated and uh, stimulate insulin and all sorts of things. Okay, let's go with some more questions. Here is this is from Lisa. I just had an ultrasound by and bypassed the mammogram. Good girl, good lady, good. Some people don't like. Some women don't like the word girl. I don't mean that derogatorily, Lisa. I just like good boy. I don't say good man. I say good boy, good girl. I mean, it doesn't mean. So please, I never don't want to offend anyone. So I just had an ultrasound and bypassed the mammogram. Great. I have a history of cysts. I've had 2 to 3 biopsies in the past 10 years. None turned out to be CFCs. After the most recent ultrasound, something I need something looked at I need something looked at my right breast, but when I called the breast center I previously went to, stated I need a mammogram now. How dumb. Where do I go to get my breast looked at? I need another biopsy. Okay, well, Lisa, yeah, remember something. These people are not like thinking. You have to understand they're not thinking, so don't even consider what they do as looking at you, the human being, and making some sort of decision. Okay, they're just following the protocols from the American Society of Clinical Oncology. It's just algorithms. So when they say, "I need a mammogram," you don't ever need a mammogram. Nobody ever needs a mammogram. To have your breasts evaluated, you can. I don't know. You don't. I'm not sure where you live, but if you find a good holistic or functional doctor, they should be able to uh, examine your breasts and find out and give you a lot of information from there. Now, if you're doing self breast exams, if you find that it's hard, not very tender, not tender, hard, um, if it seems to have increased in size, all those things are telling you it's probably CFCs. And then other thing you want to notice, is it movable or is it kind of stuck to the chest wall? That's important to know. Um, Check in your armpit too to see if there's any lymph nodes in there, all that. And then what you do is you find a doctor, an integrative, who works in this field of integrative oncology, and talk to them about some therapies where they can do an ultrasound or whatever. But you pretty much know what's going on. You don't really need to get tissue or anything like that. You know what's going on. So now you do all the things that I've already stated. With the cleansing, with the biological dentist, number one, 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 a real biological dentist. And then you do cleansing and lymphatics, and you do all of that stuff. And then you eat only real food when you're done, the cleansing and all that. Um, you also learn to turn psychoneuroimmunology, turn the mind off, all the things we talk about, going to bed early, all these things that we're talking about. And it works every time. Why? Because the body is one system. There are not multiple systems. Steve, so very important to keep in mind is that the body is one system. We've broken it up into what we call cardiovascular system, the immune system, the nervous system, the gastrointestinal system. Um, but none of them work without the others. None of them are independent. None of them are. There's no them. It's just one big system that works. So therefore, to restore balance, harmony, optimal functioning, you can't work on only one part of it. You've got to restore balance of the whole system. Okay, and that's what we're talking about. Cleaning it, finding out if there's whatever other potential sources of toxicity would be, and removing them, feeding this body what it was designed to eat, all those things, turning the mind down. All these things have to be done, regardless of what's going on. And that doesn't matter if you have what they call arthritis or what they call cardiovascular disease or whatever they want to call it. It's always the same thing. Okay, so here's a little question here. I'm looking over at TikTok. And so if you have CFCs, you shouldn't supplement glutathione only from foods containing it. Okay, here's the thing. Uh, T. Okay, I don't want to say your last name, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Um, Glutathione is what they call a tripeptide. It's made up of 3 amino acids. Okay, um, um, glycine, glutamine, and cysteine. When you eat or you take that in, you swallow a pill that's got those three together. When it gets into your stomach, it's going to start to get digested. By the time it gets to your small intestines, it'll really be broken down into 3 different amino acids. Each amino acid will be absorbed, and it'll go into the blood system wherever it's needed, and it will not because in order to because in order to um, for that to turn for those three amino acids to turn back into that specific molecule called glutathione, you need specific enzymes, and they're not there. So you're going to absorb those amino acids. So taking the the glutathione will not increase your glutathione levels. But what will? Well, the one of the amino acids I mentioned was called cysteine, and that's the hardest one to get. We've got plenty of glutamine and glycine, there are tons of that. So by adding cysteine, we wind up increasing all the cells' ability to produce glutathione. Okay, because they'll upregulate, they'll take in that cysteine, and that will be the rate limiting um, amino acid. So NAC, N-acetylcysteine, you take that. In fact, we give it to people intravenously in the ICU when they're in when they're in the ICU. They and they have liver failure from having overdosed on Tylenol. We can reverse that with giving them intravenous uh, cysteine and N-acetylcysteine. So that's what you want to do. You want to do that because I'm just saying that the glutathione won't help. Cysteine will increase your body's ability to produce glutathione. Okay. Ow, ow, ow. Hey. Tumor stack. What? Tumor stacked to the wall, stuck to the wall, not movable. Is that a bad sign? No. Well, it just means that it's stuck to the wall. It means you have to. You got to get moving, and you've got to get the right kind of person to work with. If it's stuck to the wall, uh, yeah, it's better when it's movable because it's when it gets stuck to the wall, you don't want it to go into the wall. So you just need to get with somebody who knows what they're doing in integrative oncology and get to work with them as soon as possible. Um, okay. What This is from Kay. What to do for peripheral neuropathy? Hands and feet caused by chemotherapy. Should I take tamoxifen or other kind of hormone blocker? No, you really, if you have ER positive breast CFCs, what you want to do is make sure you're getting plenty of, because that means ER positive alpha, estrogen receptor alpha is positive, not beta. So you want to increase your beta. You do that by eating soy products, flaxseed, lots of them, to stimulate the beta. Um, and and for the neuropathy, alpha lipoic acid, B vitamins, um, and infrared saunas, lots of movement. But alpha lipoic acid, like 400 milligrams 3 times a day with one B complex. Also take one or two, one B complex, at least twice a day. Infrared saunas to get the chemo out. Chelation will help get rid of, depends if you had the platins, it'll help get rid of that, but we all need chelation anyway because we're full of heavy metals. The chelation uh, is um, movement, exercise where you're sweating, those kinds of stuff. You want to get all this stuff out. You want to chelate it. And do you need another hormone blocker? Just like I said, you want to stimulate the beta with diet. And you can actually use, now the other one is 2-methoxy estradiol, which you can get a doctor to write a prescription for and you rub that on the breast. Um, the same with estriol. Estriol is another. These are ones that are very helpful. Why estriol is helpful? Because estriol is a beta agonist. It also produces, stimulates the beta. And 2-methoxyestradiol because it is one of those metabolic dead ends, and it doesn't go, it can't go backwards, which actually turns out to be extremely therapeutic with regards to breast CFCs. It gets rid of them. Look up the studies. 2-methoxyestradiol or 2-ME2, 2-ME2, and you got to use their word breast. You know, look it up. It's very amazing. Okay, so this is from James, and this is diagnosed with CFC at the cecum on the ascending colon by colonoscopy. Then with a scan, a CT scan with the contrast. Then an MRI showed the CEA less than 2. CEA is a tumor marker, and less than 2 means it's pretty normal. Anemia means loss of blood. Weight dropped to 155, and then he's 6'2". Now 82-year-old. Started 12 milligrams ivermectin, bendazole. No sugar, at least 1 teaspoon each morning of moringa, turmeric. Amia plus other supplements. 50,000 vitamin D, 360 milligrams melatonin, 50,000 beta carotene. Feel fine, no pain. Walk 16 miles a week. Should I get another CT this Friday? Hey, James. Looks like you're doing good. I don't know what the CT is going to do. Could maybe it sounds like you're doing really, really well. I hope you're eating healthy. I hope you're eating healthy. I hope you're going to bed early. I hope you're learning to meditate, which means turn off the mind. And I hope you're doing all those other things because what you're doing is good. I hope you've done some colon hydrotherapy. If you've done some lymphatic work, I hope you move. It looks like you're walking all week, but try to move throughout the day. You're doing excellent, very good. I don't want to get another scan because what's it going to do? Make you do what? You don't want to. The only thing you could add to it is if you were to get a scan and you found out that there was something you didn't like, you could maybe add some intravenous vitamin C. But I don't know if you've also gone to a biological dentist and you've done some cleansing and got rid of all potential causes of this. I don't know how far you've gone. Okay, all of that's very, very important. If we take on okay, so here this is Estefani. I've been diagnosed with osteosarcoma with lung mets. Now I have just lung tumors growing up. I want to do your deworming method by myself because no doctor wants to do it. What medications do you recommend? I've completely changed my diet. Great, Stefani. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see the webinar. You can find it on drlodi.com, and it'll go into all the protocols that you can be doing. And the places you can find it are online without a doctor is alldaychemists.com or 1mg.com, 1mg.com, or at least 2 of them. And I know they're still working because someone I know recently got theirs from alldaychemists.com. So it's working. But you can get the protocols from there, and you there's like no bad protocol. I mean, if you're doing ivermectin, fenbendazole, or mebendazole, and praziquantel and niclosamide, um, and then tinidazole for the protozoa, or nitazoxanide for the protozoa, and then fluconazole for the fungus. All that together. 3 weeks on, 1 week off. 3 weeks on, 1 week off. Keep doing it, doing it, doing it, doing it. But please watch that webinar because it'll give you a lot of information. Okay. And with the osteosarcoma, it's as you all may know, began in the bone, and now it's in the lung. So you need to also you got to you got to look at the mouth, biological dentist. You got to do all the same things: cleansing. Oh, I recently purchased from Aldi Chem. I said I would fax prescription, and not more was said. Huh? I'm not sure what happened, but so I just talked to someone who got them all from them. So uh, tr- I'm not sure where you are in that process, but don't give up. Okay, so you've completely changed your diet. Okay, that's fine. Good. I hope you're eating uncooked food. Uncooked food. So this is Kat. Hi, Dr. Lodi. Do you have any special tips for people with oral HPV CFCs? What, if any, activities would you add to the anti-CFC metformin, statin, and the bendazole? I am unable to take doxy. Well, yeah, I mean, you've got the mebendazole, and I hope you're doing ivermectin and mebendazole, maybe one other one like niclosamide, and then something for antiprotozoals like uh, tinidazole and or nitazoxanide, which is Linnea, and then something for funguses like fluconazole. Um, and I'm not sure where it is on your orally, but you can put direct ozone on as long as you don't breathe it in. Direct ozone, or you could use like 8-9% food grade hydrogen peroxide. Um, I hope you're working with a holistic or integrative oncologist. Uh, IV ozone, intravenous, different kinds of IV ozone like Ebu or Tenpas, and vitamin C high doses together are very good antiviral, have very good antiviral activity. You can also use IPT using acyclovir and some of the other ones. Um, even though the HPV is not a herpes, but the ozone and the vitamin C, and then also there's other ways we have to enhance the immune system. All of you, I forgot to mention. I hope you're getting thymosin alpha 1 to stimulate your body's ability to produce T cells, and you're also using metenkephalin, I mean methionine and kephalin, or Met5, or MENK, as some of them call it. Uh, Very important to get the immune system working. Very important. And with the TA1, it's usually about 2 milligrams per day for daily for 2 weeks, and then every other day. Subcutaneous, a little shot with an insulin syringe, and then with the Met 5, it's about 10 milligrams twice a day subcutaneously, 4 days a week. And you do this into the little insulin syringe. Okay, so okay, let me see something. Oh, I did receive all the deworming messages ordered. Meds ordered. Okay, great, fantastic. There's another person. Beautiful. I don't know. T, is that Tammy or uh, what else could it be? Tony, Tammy. Anyway, um, okay. So about limes, limes and babesia and all those other ones. Unfortunately, they've been weaponized, and it looks like some of the best therapies are energy therapies, um, like rife. If you get a good rife generator, you can use scalar waves. There's ways of dealing with these organisms. Uh, that limes has been Now, Lyme's is a spirochete, very same type of bacteria or organism as syphilis, um, and they seem to go everywhere and cause everything. And they call them I think they used to call syphilis the great masquerader, and the same with Lyme's, because it can do almost anything. And now they've weaponized it. But again, one of the good things are in terms of medicines, ivermectin, mebendazole, doxycycline, very important. 100 milligrams twice a day, and then you use the ivermectin 12 milligrams 3 times a day, mebendazole 500 milligrams 3 times a day. Um, yeah, there's lots of those. Those are very important. Um, you can use also, you can use insulin potentiated therapies with not the chemo, but with using insulin potentiated intravenous, antibiotics, so that you don't have to get such high doses and kill off your natural um, normal flora. So remember, when you're doing any of this kind of stuff, you've got to be taking lots of. First of all, you should be eating right, and if you're eating right, then you're eating all the prebiotics necessary. But if you're not eating right, then you've got to take prebiotics and some probiotics all day long, and do it rectally and orally. What do you take rectally? You get bifidobacter, bifidus, bifinate. Do that rectally at nighttime when you go to sleep, and during the day, it takes um, a the one we like is Ultimate Flora, because it's got 40 different strains and 150 billion CFUs, colony forming units. You just take those, and you got to keep your biome up. Hopefully you've checked your again your mouth. It's all the same thing. It doesn't matter what your condition is. You've got to check your mouth, your biological dentistry. You've got to do cleansing, colonics, lymphatics, all the same thing, because the body is a system. It's one system. It works the same always. It requires what it requires. You want to put it in the best condition so that it will eliminate anything that's impairing its ability to function. It will do that. Okay, it is divine. So that's what you have to do, is restore its integrity, restore its functional integrity, because it will take care of it. In the meantime, you also need to be increasing your, given the peptides and your immune system. Um, the thymosin alpha 1, the Met 5, all these things. Again, in addition to the, and then ozone and vitamin C again, and ultraviolet blood irradiation. You've got to find doctors that are really know what they're doing and they've been around. Um, there's a lot that are not really what they claim to be. Wow. Justin, my name is, and I'm 32-year-old, and my 32-year-old son has been diagnosed with stage 4 lung CFCs. However, they say this is very rare, being that he has no tumor. I'm so confused. He has tried chemo and it did nothing. He's taking this drug along with fentanyl patches. Oh my God. So this diagnosis came with no warning that my son was throwing up blood. They did bronchoscopy and they said the bleeding is coming from the left lung, but it's not sure to go on blind radiate. I'm not comfortable with this as he's ended up getting pneumonia when he had bronchoscopy. Is there anything I can do to save my son? Wow, I don't listen. Um, okay, listen, Justin. I mean Kelly. Did your son get uh, any of the Pfizer or Moderna um, bioweapon injections? Because they can do things like this. And I don't really know what's going on. You say there's no tumor. There's just he vomited up blood. Uh, Nothing seems to be working. So I don't really know what's going on. You know, this situation is much more complex than we can discuss right now. You should get in touch with me. Go on hello at drlodi.com and tell them that we spoke. I mean that we connected on the live, and that I need to talk to you. It's I don't know what from this description. It's very difficult to know what really happened. Um, all right, you all. I can't. Okay. Anyway, so Eddie Cup, couple of my cup. Sorry for that long delay at the beginning. That was just crazy. I really. Anyway, I'm so sorry. So thank you again for, and I'll see you next week. Hopefully have this fixed.